We're going to recap the rookies from week 9 by going over the top 10 rookies in PPR scoring and going over the trends, going over the work rates, the usage, and everything else. That way you know what these rookies are doing, whether or not you need to buy, sell, trade, pick up, whatever you want to do with these rookies. You got that information, and we do this every week on the regular so we can keep an eye on these young guys. But what you need to do right now is click that subscribe button. Tap it with your finger on your phone. Click it with your mouse on your computer, because we love to deep dive players on this channel to help you out with the waiver wire. We do that all week long. We also help you set lineups. We cover a lot of information on players. And also, it's going to help you in the offseason with Dynasty rookie drafts, the NFL draft, and getting you ready for next year as well. Hit that button. Stop missing out. Let's dig into this here. CJ Stroud, top rookie last week. Of course, he went off in last week's game. 40.8 PPR fantasy points. 89.7% of his balls passed were catchable. And it was a fire matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we were saying that going into the week because you can throw on the Buccaneers. You have to, because they'll stuff you in the run game. You do not want to run on the Buccaneers. NFL teams tell us that because they get in these shootouts. Even if it's a low-scoring game, both teams are generally throwing the football. We've seen games hit with a 40 to 45 point total, and there still be almost 40 pass attempts with both teams involved. So that's something to say about the nature of the Tampa Bay defense. Teams want to throw on him. He's also operating out of a clean pocket on 75% of his passes. Depending on the scoring in your league, he could be much higher. 51 here on Sleeper, had 470 yards, 5 touchdowns. He was slinging the rock. Had a ton of air yards in this game. 463 attempted air yards, 11 air yards per attempt. That's good to see. You want to see your quarterbacks just sling it downfield. You want to see him just push it down there relentlessly, and also with accuracy. Once you start getting accuracy with that, once you start humming, you get performances like CJ Stroud gets, and he does this often throughout the season, and he's a pretty reliable quarterback play. CJ Stroud's been doing damn good for a rookie. Tank Dell benefited from CJ Stroud, and Tank Dell was a huge pickup last week. We were saying it was coming. The chances of him hitting was good because he's done it off and on throughout the season, coming back from an injury. We knew there was some ramp-up time. We know how this team works. One wide receiver will hit, another one will do okay, then the other ones will just do a little something. Tank Dell was the one that hit. Him and Noah Brown. Nico Collins also had his moment as well, scoring that touchdown. It was a Tank Dell game. 29.6 PPR fantasy points, 11 targets, and a 28.9% target share. Expect him to be up and down, but he's a good wide receiver to have on your team, a good wide receiver to play the matchups with. And why I say up and down? Because we could have a Nico Collins game, we could have a Noah Brown game, we could have a slower game script, as we saw in these last few performances with the Texans due to the offensive line issues. So there are some variables, but Tank Dell's good. He's a very good rookie wide receiver, third-round pick. CJ Stroud wanted him. They got a good connection. He had 222 air yards in this game. So he's more than just a slot receiver. I would call him more like a slot plus, because you can get him deep, because he's very nuanced. He can create separation. He's a guy that you can put on the boundary a little bit too, even though he's smaller, because he can still work that separation, still get ahead of you, because he's a tricky route runner. Tank Dell's a good player. Keaton Mitchell, he made the list. We've been talking about rookies all this time. Keaton Mitchell's here, the top rookie running back of the week, the third rookie on this list in scoring with 20.4 PPR fantasy points. Got his work in the third quarter, 34.5% opportunity share. He is the hot waiver wire dandy. One reason why is because the waiver wire has sucked for the last month and a half. We haven't had any running backs where the market was excited about. There's just speculations. There were just running backs getting a little bit more opportunity. But you know what? They were ho-hum. They weren't electric. They weren't young. They weren't this new, shiny mystery box like Keaton Mitchell is. He got you 14.7 yards after contact per attempt in this game because he had those 2 long runs. He ran 3 routes, 7.9% route participation rate. The fact that he can hit the open field and just be gone in a matter of seconds, means that he's a home run threat. He's a home run hitter. He's going to be volatile. He's going to be up and down because he's sharing the backfield. The thing about him, though, is he's going to have his moments where he goes off, and he's going to have his moments where he doesn't. And the thing about that is because he's sharing the backfield, and then, too, he's a home run hitter. So if that home run's there, he's going to take it. If it's not there, then it might be a low-scoring game for him because that's just the nature of his profile, the nature of the beast here. But if he starts getting more touches, more than 9 in a game, there's going to be more opportunities for him to hit that home run. And this team wants that. This team wants that. They want that with Gus Edwards. That's a perfect pair right there. They really want that. They could really feast in the back half of the season if they can really get Keaton Mitchell rolling with Gus Edwards and have those two being a good 1-2 combo. You can just feel it. That being said, he's up and down throughout the season, probably going to get you some upside weeks. You're going to play the lottery ticket. But he is a hot piece off the waiver wire right now, and you got to go get him because there's really nothing else, and there hasn't been anything else for the last few weeks. Dalton Kincaid, hot piece off the waiver wire a couple weeks ago. 11 targets, 34.4% target share, 16.1 PPR fantasy points, and he's coming into his own because Dalton Kincaid was out. He's not siphoning targets and snaps anymore. So Kincaid's getting opportunity. He's getting a lot of it. This team pushes the ball downfield. They're explosive. This is a perfect spot for a tight end like Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Kincaid, very good tight end prospect. Usually tight ends take a couple years to develop. And we were calling this out in preseason that he was getting a lot of work in the slot. He was getting a lot of opportunity. It still took some time to ramp up. It took Dawson Knox being out from siphoning all this workload for him to hit. But again, rookie tight ends usually don't hit, even first rounders. So the fact that you're getting this production now is a very good sign, and he's in an offense that can buoy his production. Look for Dalton Kincaid to be a hit for the rest of the year. Tyson Beck, I love his dad. I've been watching him on Ocho Cinco, ESPN2, or whatever, on those arm wrestling shows for years, forever feels like. They even had an A&E documentary. He was on there, and the fact that you see him at like the Senior Bowl just taking over in the media coverage is awesome. Tyson Badger is just that dog player, that dog quarterback who can step in as a backup, do a little bit of something, score you some fantasy points, had you 70 yards rushing here. A quarterback that, you know what, you don't want to start, but could get you something on any given Sunday. 15.8 PPR fantasy points, so QB2 level, 72% catchable passes, 68.2% out of a clean pocket. So not super high there. He had to work through a little bit of a mess. The air yards aren't high. 8 carries for 70 yards. Tyson Bagent just does the dirty work. Luke Musgrave, 14.1 PPR fantasy points. This is a good tight end class. We got a lot of good tight ends to look at this year, and we're going to have even more next year when these rookies start developing into the next season, because it takes a couple seasons for tight ends to get better and develop into the NFL system. So expect this good rookie draft class of tight ends to get better and be even more dominant, be more useful in fantasy next year and the year after. But the fact that we're getting production from Sam Laporta, Kincaid, Musgrave, we're seeing some others do some things that I'm not naming, but still, 4 targets, 16% target share, lower volume passing game, 25 routes, 80% route participation rate, which is good for a rookie tight end. Just being on the field running routes is a good thing as a rookie. 14.1 PPR fantasy points. Musgrave is a guy that you just throw in on a whim and a prayer and redraft, just see what happens. Now we're looking at Jackson Smith and the Jigba. He's starting to heat up a little bit. We're starting to get some double-digit PPR performances out of him, which is good. 12.3 PPR fantasy points last week. Just 4 targets, though, and a 16% target share. Prior to that, he was humming with more targets, but it's going to be up and down this offense because we got 2 good wide receivers with them. But still, running on 88.2% of the routes, running a lot in the slot. We need the air yards to jump up, though. 46 air yards last week, and it's starting to get a little bit volatile because we are seeing some games where he gets more air yards than usual. But still, we need him to get deeper targets. That's going to help his fantasy production, help him with his upside. But again, when you got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett to stretch the field, that's not really going to happen. You kind of need a good wide receiver for the short to intermediate. And if the targets start flowing that way, Jackson Smith and Jigba could be on the come up. Demario Douglas was a waiver wire pickup last week due to Kendrick Bourne being out for the season with an ACL. 10.5 PPR fantasy points, 7 targets, 16.3% target share. Target share was a little bit light, but we saw Juju Smith-Schuster get some targets, Jalen Reagor get some targets. The targets spread around this offense a little bit more last week. 48 air yards. We also need to see him start getting some deeper targets to help him hit his upside a little bit more. But we also need him to continue to get this volume, 7, 8 targets a game, so he can be a consistent fantasy asset. 10.5 PPR fantasy points isn't really that much in the grand scheme of things, but in your lineup, when you see 10 or more, 10, 11, 12, you feel okay. You feel like you didn't get a complete bust, but really he's like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4-ish levels in scoring. Now we're looking at Jordan Addison, 10.2 PPR fantasy points here. Had a decent day here, 7 targets, 20% target share, all considering what was going on in the offense, the ups and downs of that. Ran 46 routes, was in on 100% of the routes. He was on the field, he was running wind sprints, he was getting opportunities, and that's what you need to see when you're seeing a team in flux at the quarterback position, still able to get you 10 spots. Still was able to do so, so I look at that as being very encouraging. Now we're looking at Rashied Rice, 9.7 PPR fantasy points, which is okay, but just 2 targets. The targets are up and down. Before that, he was getting 5, 6 a game. It's starting to lower a little bit. Ran just 20 routes. This offense is really hard to peg for the wide receiver position. The only thing I nailed with this Chiefs offense really in the offseason, well, I kind of talked about Rice a lot, but really what I nailed is really going to be hard to predict these wide receivers. We have to wait and see what's going to happen because Patrick Mahomes looks like he's going to be the Bill Belichick of quarterbacks. And that is damn true. You do not know which wide receiver you're going to want that week, if any. Just like Bill Belichick is or was with the running backs back in the day. You just do not know which wide receiver you want on any given week. And it doesn't even matter due to the matchup. Those are 10 rookies from week 9 who are skyrocketing up the board in fantasy points. We're going to talk about more next week after week 10. We're talking about the waiver wire. We're going to help you set your lineups this week as well. So hit that subscribe button. Stop missing out. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.